in psychedelic-assisted therapy, the medicine creates an opportunity. The medicine does not do the work for you.
Before they begin the journey, have you talked with them about their specific trauma or drama, or whatever it is you're dealing with?
I know their history, I know their behaviors, they know and trust me. That makes it a lot easier.
How do you tie in that chronic relapse behavior into the experience they have on the journey?
Part of their process usually involves working and working and working and working.
Yeah, well, good afternoon. I'm Bob Wick, Coach Bob Wick, Neurorestorative Coaching, and I'm excited today. I'm joined by somebody I met 7-8 years ago when I was in therapy, and always made a very positive impression on me with her style, her directness, her authority, and her knowledge. And her name is Maggie Doulan. And we're sitting in Maggie's office today on a beautiful Thursday afternoon here in sunny Florida. And we're going to talk about a couple of things. One, which I think is very new, very exciting, is, and I've read about this, is the use of psychedelics in treatment therapy. Very brand new area that I personally know very little about, but Maggie has spent a lot of time learning about this in personal training. And we'll hear more about that. And then I want to talk a little bit about the transition from when somebody's working with a therapist, whether one-on-one or in a treatment center, 30, 60 days, and they finish their therapy. They've worked on the trauma and the drama. Now they walk out the front door and they have to get on with life and what that's all about. And I'll share a little bit about my personal experience and what that entailed. But first, Maggie, thank you.
Oh, of course. It's really an honor to work with you. It's great. I'm really happy to be here.
Well, to the point.
To the point.
I was at a conference. Here, I need my glasses and I'm going to pull this up. But I was at a conference with my fiance, Dr. Barbara Krantz, who does a lot of work on this whole area of neuroplasticity. And the conference was down in Nashville. It was back in September. And it was a conference of the Osteopathic Medical Association. There had to be 1,000 people there, and they did it in conjunction with the Academy of Addiction Medicine, which is what brought Barbara there. And I was walking down the hallway, and I knew you had mentioned the whole area of the psychedelics, and they had a big poster up about a seminar they were putting on later that afternoon, and it was called Frontiers in Psychedelic-Assisted Therapies. And I said, oh, yeah, that's what Maggie was talking about.
Yes.
And I looked at the objectives of the meeting, and the one that struck me was they talked about psychedelic-assisted therapies. And I don't know if that's exactly the area that you're involved in, but it's new. I think it's got a lot of interest. Personally, when I saw the psychedelic therapies, I think back to the late 60s, early 70s. What I did was psychedelics and kind of party time, chill out, or whatever. But yeah, it got my attention. So if you wouldn't mind sharing with us a little bit what's going on.
It really is a fascinating subject, and it actually ties in quite well with kind of the part two of your introduction as far as subjects. So it's important to realize that in psychedelic assisted therapy, the medicine creates an opportunity. The medicine does not do the work for you. So all of us over time can get very entrenched in certain things. That's really what substance use is, right? So you're doing the same thing over and over, sometimes even knowing it's hurting you. You're not even having the quote unquote benefits that you used to get, and people continue to do it. So one of the beautiful things about psychedelics is it provides this open door. So neuroplasticity is increased for a period of 2 to 4 weeks post medicine. Let's use Psilocybin for an example. So for a period of 2 weeks afterward, you have hyperneuroplasticity. So this is a time where you have a chance to change your behaviors, change your thinking, practice urge surfing and challenging cravings, and generally doing something differently. Your brain will essentially wire around that.
Neuroplasticity being the ability of the brain to actually change.
Yes. Yes, and we used to, yeah, that it's a huge that's really exploded as far as knowledge across coaching, across therapy. But if you think about it, since you have this hyper neuroplasticity, you could make it worse. So if you do have an episode of medication, even if you develop a lot of insight, if you change nothing, if you go right back into the world and you think the way you were thinking and you do everything that you were doing,
Right.
now your brain is wired firmly around that. That doesn't mean you're doomed. We could open that back up again. We could do another um, dosage of medicine. There's things we could do, but that's where the coaching is really important, because I can't follow somebody around
Right.
throughout their day. And if you think about it again, think about things that we do habitually. The first thing that happens is you catch it after you've just done it. That is not my favorite part of change. I'm working on something. I'm trying to not say bad words, for example. And when I'm first working on it, I will say it and then, I just did it. Then I can catch it in the middle. Then I can get in front of it. If you are working with a coach, you can say, I don't know if you realize it, Maggie, but you just said 4 bad words
Yeah.
in that sentence. And I could go, I didn't even catch it. Let's talk about it. How am I going to get in front of it? How can you signal me so I can interrupt it quicker and I can replace it with I can say fudge instead of the worst word. So coaching is really, really important. The medicine provides an opportunity. It's usually beautiful and amazing. People develop insight. They're able to get around their defenses and think about themselves differently. They have a view from up here instead of being entrenched in it. They have a different perspective. So it does all these really amazing things. It can often kind of reset. So it's great for depression. There are all sorts of applications that are coming out. But if you don't do the integration, which means after the journey, people spend time with me again. We go over what happened.
Mhm.
What do you remember? What are the insights? What are the things that you want to do differently? How do we operationalize what you learned on your journey? If people don't do that step and then actually do it, they're not getting nearly the benefit that they could.
Before they begin the experience, before
Mhm.
they begin the journey, have you talked with them about their specific trauma or drama or whatever it is you're dealing with
Yes.
as kind of a precursor or something for them
Yes.
to the degree they can think about that?
Absolutely. So the way it goes is there are preparation sessions, and that's everything from identifying an intention, which is different than a goal. It's more like, what do I want to learn about, as opposed to what do I want to happen.
Okay.
And we go over everything: safety, what to eat and not the week before, kind of how to prepare yourself physically and spiritually and psychologically to do this. Depending on the medicine, sometimes people would need to meet with, they always need to meet with their doctor just to be cleared. But also, if there's sometimes there are medications that they need to taper off of before the journey. So all of that is really important.
Okay.
Some people do it as a standalone treatment. I have never done this with anybody I haven't already been working with for a while, so I know them pretty well. So I know their history, I know their behaviors, they know and trust me. That makes it a lot easier, and it makes it easier to help interpret what happens on the journey.
How long's the physical journey?
So start to finish, it's usually 3 to 5 hours. Usually by 3 hours, people are starting to kind of sit up and talk a little bit about it, but you're actually under the influence for a while. So no driving, anything like that. I always caution people to be very protective of their energy. Do not watch the news, horror movies. The news is a horror movie sometimes nowadays. Yeah. So, and just to be cautious, you don't want to go out into an overwhelming crowd. So yeah, the recommendation is just sit with yourself, be calm, notice what comes up.
Okay.
Yeah.
So after the 5 hours or whatever, what's the process, or how do you engage with them right after that? You said for a period of 2, 3, 4 weeks.
Yes. So it's I again, I don't administrate it or anything like that, and it's worth noting that in Oregon and Colorado, psilocybin is legal. It is not legal federally, and it's not legal in any other state other than that. So again, there are some legal sticky points still. Experts anticipate that this will change, that the horses left the barn. The research is overwhelming. There are reputable institutions like Johns Hopkins that has a whole department.
Really?
Oh yeah. So there's excellent research. So again, it's moving. It's just a matter of how quickly this is going to move. So that said, now I lost my train of thought. Oh, the process after. So there's the journey day, and then depending on the person and their schedule, we either do the integration sessions in person, or if they live in another state, we would check in and have some coaching integration after the fact.
I guess I asked that question around engaging the process of neuroplasticity.
Oh, okay.
And engaging the changes in the brain.
Okay.
How does that happen?
And that would be where you would be invaluable. So we meet, we talk about what happened, and then again we talk about how do we operationalize what you have learned.
Right.
So for example, let's see if I can think of one. Someone has this chronic feeling of being alone. It's directly related to this person's trauma that I'm thinking of. They were pretty horrifically neglected. So their worldview is truly I'm alone. It doesn't matter if they are literally alone or with others. The feeling is alone. Yeah. So psilocybin in particular, the medications do slightly different things. Tend to create a sense of oneness. I'm connected to everything. It's very spiritual. Mm-hmm. I'm connected to whom I believe is God or my higher power. I'm connected.
Right.
So integration would be, how would you walk around in the world if your default was I'm connected instead of I'm alone? It's something we could be creative about depending on the person. And again, if you know them and I know them, we can collaborate together on what would this look like. Could this look like when you go into an AA meeting, you don't sit in the back. You actually consider, I am connected to all these people. We have this in common. I have something to contribute. I have to make myself practice that though. Otherwise, I will sit in the back and be quiet and do what I've always done. If you go with them, nudge them, remind them, you actually know all those people in the front row. Mm-hmm. I've seen you talk to them. Let's push ourselves a little bit and move out. Now let's try over the next few weeks, if my belief is shifting to I have support, I'm connected, I'm not alone. When I need help, it's great to call you and call me, but who else can you call? Who else can you start to kind of test that? Yeah. Who is going to show up for you, and how will you even give them feedback if they don't do it in a way that's meaningful? Because that's the other thing we see. If the default's I'm alone, I'll give one person one chance, and if they blow it, see, no one can be trusted.
Yeah,
so again, if you're with them, you can say we can't go on that. We have to see what they're made of. If you go back and say you hurt my feelings when you canceled, and they say I'm really sorry, I now I know that that's really important to you. I will make it or die trying, next time we have plans.
Okay. Specifically, the person that, not loneliness, but specifically is a chronic relapser around some kind of substance abuse, use disorder, drugs, alcohol, sex, gambling, whatever it is. How do you tie in that chronic relapse behavior, if you will, into the experience they have on the journey, either during the actual journey or post?
Okay, so let's try to tie it in as specifically as we can. We have a lot of overlap with our demographic that we work with. So let's say that it's someone that you've been working with. It's an extremely high achiever, chronic relapser.
Yep.
So part of their process usually involves working and working and working and working.
Correct.
And what we know is for a healthy program of recovery, you need purpose and passion. That's good. They've usually got that covered. We also need spirituality. We also need community, which, believe me or not, that's what people usually fight me on. Is community. I have enough people. I don't have time for that. But usually one of these, purpose and passion, self-care, which means You have to sleep. That is not optional. Again, with the demographic that
Yeah.
we work with, you have to eat well. You cannot just work. You have to build in a more balanced lifestyle of self-care so that when the craving hits, you don't just tip over
I
because you're
call it
already
the
stressed.
balance between the mental, physical, and spiritual.
Yep.
Balance.
Has to keep that
So-
balance.
yeah,
But we
okay.
know the habit, and we know that the temptation is, particularly because a lot of people with this demographic don't have a lot of people in their life who will really call them out.
Especially
Right?
the wealthy, right?
Right. There's nobody in the orbit who will say you're doing it. You're
They'll tell them what
doing
they
it
want to
again.
hear.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Instead of what they need to hear.
Right.
So we have somebody who intellectually knows these things. I need self-care, purpose, and passion. I need spirituality. I need community. I need accountability. That's also a tough one with this demographic. Who are they going to be accountable to and how? So that's sober link, that's drug test, that's check-in, that's all of that stuff. Yeah. So usually they're very comfortable with one or two, and then they drift on the other ones. So if they've done a journey where they've learned, I'm not just a piece of meat that works. I'm actually a person of value for who I am and not just what I do and what I produce. So if that's what happens on their journey, which I've seen more than once, okay, how are we going to operationalize that? Because if you learn this and then you go back to your life and you just work, now you've made it worse. Now you've just doubled down, as opposed to you understand this about yourself. Now you have to walk around in the world like you believe that.
Inside of them, this other personality, this other identity. This is what I learned about myself after 30 years of relapse behavior. I had this inner champion, hero, survivor, whatever you want to call them, that would not allow me to give up. So yes, I kept coming back, going to multiple treatment centers. Didn't matter. I was on that repetitive cycle of recovery, but I never gave up. And I don't know if those were conscious decisions or something in my brain. This inner person kept leading me in that direction. But what I discovered is that I had this person. And when I did, it was kind of like, okay, I get it.
I felt who I am.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah. Does that kind of understanding evolve during the journey?
Yes. And you're actually intuitively employing the language is a little different, something called internal family systems therapy. Have you heard of that?
I've heard of it.
So what you're talking about is the difference between a protector part driving and your core self. So when you're saying, I remembered this inner, that is your true core self. You remembered that somewhere deep down inside. What was happening is protector parts were driving. Protector parts are parts of yourself that they think they're helping, usually developed either in childhood or as a young adult, to try to protect these vulnerable parts of yourself. So let's say this high achiever person we're talking about had a very, very critical father. Very critical father. Drove them. All that matters is where you go to college and what you do and money, and I don't care who you are, son. Go do it. Go achieve. Make it. So that person learned and has this very strong protective part. If you want to stay connected to your father, you better just work and work and work and work and achieve and work and work. And that works for a while until it doesn't, right?
Moving from the work part, to the addiction.
Yes.
Part of what I've come to learn is that the brain, in a protective manner, for that person who is faced with a moment of real stress, whatever that might be, in the protective manner, will say it's okay to pick up that drink or take that pill or do what you can handle this as a way of calming them down. But the brain saying, protecting them in their own way.
Right. So what you're describing, again, you're very, very smart and very intuitive. So what you're describing is a firefighter part. So we have these protector parts. This is the working and the working. If something gets close to what's called, the language is exiled inner children. So if there is this deep down part in this same person who really just wants their dad to love them, just to love them for who they are.
Yeah.
Whenever anybody gets near this exiled part, until they've really done a lot of work around it with a therapist, that triggers firefighter. I don't want anybody anywhere. And think about
Firefighter.
and that's the substance use. So if you think about what a firefighter does, they come and they put the fire out. That's the good news. The bad news is all your stuff's ruined, right? So it'll work. The use of substances will drown it. It will obliterate that feeling of humiliation or loneliness or longing. It works, but now what, right? So
yeah, exactly.
You've used it and now all your stuff's ruined. Now you've hurt yourself, you've hurt your loved ones, you've yeah.
Okay.
So that's again, I'm very impressed at how intuitive you are about that. But that's the language that I would use.
My intuitiveness comes from my fiance.
Okay. I'm a fan. Yeah.
But I guess my curiosity is I'm going through this journey. And I remember I used to write profusely.
Mm-hmm.
This is my college days, and it was LSD and mushrooms back then. And I'd write for 6-7 hours, nonstop. And I'd be talked about later. It'd take 8.5 pages that I wrote on, and I'd tape them up around the entire room, writing a story. Just thoughts would flow. I'd write them down. And for me, my experience at the end was a cathartic experience.
Yes.
I had unleashed all these thoughts, to a certain degree, emotions and feelings on paper at a pretty intense speed.
Yes.
During my journey. Then we called it the trip or whatever. But I'd always feel inside lighter.
Yes.
I
always hear that word. Literally always. I feel lighter. Yeah.
So for the person that's dealing with substance abuse, how would that, and I'm thinking out loud, honestly, how would that feeling of lightness, or you will, or of relief impact their addictive behavior?
So it's good and bad. So here's what usually happens is a huge reason that I will recommend possibly use of psychedelics is because I can't get around a block. And again, the same demographic, the blocks are usually very impressive, the defense mechanisms. It kind of comes down like a wall. And usually it's not conscious at all or deliberate. I just can't get around it. Nope, I'm fine. I don't have any problems with grief. That happened when I was a kid. I'm good. Nope.
Yep.
I'm fine. And I know they're not fine. And deep down they know they're not fine. That makes the defenses go down enough so they can access it, which is painful and cathartic and beautiful. When they are coming out of it, even when they're just coming out of it, those protector parts, I'm really glad we were using that language, are often kind of like, what have you done? You have put us to sleep, and what have you done while we were not around?
Yeah.
So I always prepare people that sometimes there's like this flash of anxiety or, oh, I shouldn't have done that, or I shouldn't have said all that, So again, coach, therapist together, we can walk them through. It's okay. We just need to tell those parts. You can take a seat. You can sit on the bench. Everything's fine. The core self, you've got it. So you, when you're coaching people, will know them well enough to say, this feels like a protector part is driving right now. This feels like this workaholic part is driving. Or when we were together, I don't know, at a meeting, and someone said something to you and I saw it sting. I saw it hurt your feelings. I saw you get, that kind of inner child wound where it felt like, okay, this person is just talking to me because they want something from me, not really for who I am. That would trigger a craving, most likely. And you can say, I saw it. Let me help you. I saw what happened. I saw the sting. I bet you're really, really thirsty right now. Let's talk about how do we ride this out? Remember what will we learn if we can distract for 20 minutes so you can see it and you can walk them through that. I can't unless I happen to be there, or unless they call me, or unless they manage to not relapse until they get to me again.